got my show on Monday. I was hoping someday you'd be on your way to better things. It's not about your makeup or how you try to shape up to these tiresome paper dreams.
Okay, so there's 6 components of the soccer kick. The first component is the initial approach to the ball, and the second component is the plant foot forces, so the foot that's not hitting the ball. The third component is the swing limb loading, so the swing of the leg that's about to hit the ball. The fourth component is the hip flexion and knee extension. And then you have initial foot contact on the ball, and finally you have the follow through of the kick. Well, before we get into any of the muscles that are involved in kicking a soccer ball, we're going to go through the bones and the joints that are involved. So the hips are both involved with your plant leg and your leg that's going to kick the ball. You have both your knees that will extend or stabilize where they need to be, and your ankles for plantar flexion when you go to contact the ball. So the bones involved would be your femur, your tibia, your fibula, your calcaneus, your talus, your metatarsals, and then the phalanges of your foot. So when you go to kick a soccer ball, in the approach and during the follow through of the kick, there's extension and flexion at your knee. And there's often confusion on what is extension and what is flexion. And when it comes to the knee, there's a way you can look at it. The flexion lowers the angle or decreases the angle of your knee, as to where extension increases the angle. So if I have my knee straight at 180 degrees, it's extension, and then when it lowers, that's flexion. So the quadriceps will increase the angle, so when they contract, they cause extension, and that's the 4 quadriceps that cause extension. And the 4 quadriceps are made of the rectus femoris, the vastus medialis, the vastus intermedius, and the vastus lateralis. And the same goes for the hamstring group. The hamstring groups, when they contract, they pull the knee away from being straight, and they decrease the angle, causing flexion. And the hamstring group is made up the biceps femoris, the semitendinosus, the semimembranosus.
All the muscles of the quadricep group join in a common tendon of the quadricep tendon. The origins of the quadricep group vary from the iliac spine, the greater trochanter, the shaft of the femur, and the linea aspera, which is a ridge on the posterior surface of the femur. All muscles of the hamstring group originate on the ischial tuberosity, which is what you're sitting on. The insertions vary from the biceps femoris at the head of the fibula, the semimembranosus at the medial tibial condyle, and the semitendinosus on the tibia below the medial condyle.
So when we talk about hip flexion, you can say that the angle is decreasing once again, and the major hip flexors are the iliacus, the psoas, and the rectus femoris, which is also in the quadricep group, but because it crosses the knee and the hip joint, it helps with hip flexion. All of these muscles are located in the front of the knee, and when they contract, they pull the hip forward, causing hip flexion and decreasing this angle here.
The iliacus and the psoas have a common insertion on the lesser trochanter of the femur. Like its name, the iliacus originates on the ilium, and the psoas originates on the first 5 lumbar vertebrae.
Here's a more in-depth picture of the quadricep group in a soccer motion, so kicking the soccer ball down here. In purple is your main muscle, which is the rectus femoris, which we talked about crosses the knee and the hip joint. And in this particular picture, it's causing extension at the knee. And in light pink, you have the vastus lateralis, and this is the most lateral of the quadricep group. And the vastus medialis is the more medial of the quadricep group. And missing from this picture is the vastus intermedius. In hip extension, so increasing this angle here, our hip is going to the back, is the gluteus maximus group, which is made up of the gluteus minimus, the gluteus maximus, of course, and the gluteus medialis. When these contract, which is highlighted in red here, when they contract, they pull the hip backwards.
The insertions of the gluteus group are found on the greater trochanter, whether it's the posterior or the anterior aspect. The origin of the gluteus maximus is the crest of the ilium, the sacrum, and the coccyx, and the medius and the minimus share the lateral surface of the ilium as an origin.